Hey again, everybody. My name is Andy Brady, and this is a newer channel called Little Bits of Awesome, where I try to take Sunday afternoon to look at just a few different gadgets, useful things, a spirit, maybe make a cocktail, weapons, 3D prints, whatever it might be that's on my mind that week. If you would, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing that every YouTube person asks. Hit that like and subscribe button if you like the video, so that we can connect again next week and see where we go from there. These videos are uncut and edited, so uncut and unedited, see? And one take, one try, so whatever comes out is what's going to come out. So I typically like to start with this being only episode 3. I like to start with a cocktail or a spirit. Today I'm going to start with Tullamore Dew, which is an Irish whiskey. I tend to not prefer it because it is a much lighter Irish whiskey. But what they've done here is they've got their Caribbean cask version where they have already aged the whiskey, and then they take a triple blend and they put it into used exo rum barrels, and what that's going to do is that's going to lend a lot of the flavors from the rum in here, and it's really going to expand the overall profile. So they're going to take a very light whiskey and they're going to make it much more complex. So what we should get from this is we should get the caramels from the whiskey. It ages in a barrel, right? So all whiskey comes out of the still clear, goes into a barrel, and that's where it's going to get its color, and that's where it's going to get a lot of its more stark flavors, such as the caramel, the spiciness, the toastedness that you would get from that barrel. What you get here, though, is you get so much more, because you get the flavor from the rum as well. Just like a barrel-aged rum, you're going to get the flavors of, banana, of dates, of raisins. I actually don't like dates at all, but in this drink, it really shines well. A lot of people like to already have this pre-chilled, or they like to throw it over an ice cube. There's a lot of really interesting cocktails out there that specifically use this, and it's becoming more and more difficult to find, funny enough, though its price range is very low for a product of this quality. So we'll enjoy this for the rest of the video and see what else we've got. The first thing I want to show you guys today is a specific type of pocket knife, and I've had these for many years. It's not a go-to of mine. It's not something that I use consistently, but it definitely has its time and place, especially when you're out working and you might be doing something that would just tear up a nicer pocket knife. An everyday carry knife, you might nick it, tear it up. You're constantly sharpening it. So this company has called Outdoor Edge has come up with a very interesting concept, and there's a couple other knives like it, but I think this one really shines the most. It's got a button that you push, and the blade actually completely comes off. And unlike a razor blade, it's actually pretty stout. It's actually a pretty thick blade, very strong. And whenever you want to put a new blade in, you slide it in. There's a button right here you push, and it clips into place. And there it is. Because it has a full backer behind it, there's some other versions of knives like this where the blade is very short and it does not really have a lot of support behind it, so you couldn't carve wood. This one here, it has the thumb rest. It actually has this behind here. You could theoretically carve wood with this. I don't know that I would carve wood, because you've got these grooves right here that you would probably get some wood and sawdust and stuff stuck in. I think it might hang up. But if you're doing something, let's say that you're on a job site and you're cutting insulation, that'll tear your knife up. It'll put it dull so fast. Let's say you're stripping some wires. Every time that you grind down on that wire, you're going to dull it out. So you buy a whole packet of these. Now, like I said, I've had these for years and years, and I've been using them for a while. Back many years ago, you had to order packets of these blades online, but now I'm starting to see these in hardware stores. I'm starting to see them in sporting goods stores, things like that. When they ship the blade, it does come in this little sealed package. It does have a rubber protector over the edge, so you should not be able to cut yourself through the packaging. There's another benefit to it. Not only is it a very inexpensive knife that stays sharp all the time, I've not tried this, but I have been I've been told by different people who've used it, and I've seen online as well, that let's say that you were going through some sort of security checkpoint where you're not allowed to bring a weapon in. You're not allowed to bring a knife in. So let's say a courthouse or just any government building, museums now, they won't let you bring anything. Push the button, pull it out. Now you don't have a knife anymore. This is not sharp at all. There's nothing to it. And if you were to remove that right there in front of the security guard and let them know, oh, by the way, this is just like a box cutter. I can remove the blade. You're allowed to have box cutters as long as there's no blade in most places. So if you attributed it to that. One of the reasons it's not an everyday carry for me is I'm kind of obsessive about keeping my knife sharp. And I want a real thin profile myself. And I don't really like the back lock. I've definitely become more of a fan of the thumb lock in the front, where you can quickly and easily close it with one hand. It's not that difficult to close it with one hand, but it's just not what I'm really used to. So, fantastic knife, very inexpensive. So if you see it in the hardware store, pick one up, grab you some spare blades. I'll put a link to Amazon below so you guys can see it. It's definitely worth a try. Definitely worth a little additional thing to have and to carry around. All right, let's go into a 3D printed item. There's a slight theme of concealment in this video. The Zippo lighter. If you're like me, I own quite a few of them, even though I do not smoke. I was raised that in the Scouts, and being able to make fire is always a beneficial thing. This is a gas insert made by Zippo that you can put right into your existing Zippo lighters. But that's not what I'm here to show you guys today. Even though that is kind of neat, I will tell you, get the off-brand one. Don't get the Zippo brand one. This one just is very inconsistent compared to the off-brand one. This is the most simple 3D print I've ever designed. It is nothing but a shell, but it is specifically sized so that when it goes into your empty shell, it passes this little clasp that's in here that would usually hold the rocker that holds it open or closed, and then it even clips shut. So what you end up with is the ability to use a Zippo container as a container. So again, if you're like me and you don't smoke, you'd be able to use this for lots of different things. If you were going on a trip, you could use it to contain your medicine. You could, if you play guitar, you could throw your guitar picks in here, whatever it might be. But without something like this in here, it just flops around. So you could never really use it as a container. Slide this little thing in there. Tolerances had to be pretty tight. But it's a very quick print, so if you try to print one and it's a little too tight or a little too small, you can change your axis, your Z-axis down just a little bit, shorten it up, see if you get that satisfying click. Because once you get that, you'll have it dialed in. Go ahead and print a couple of them. Very quick, very easy. A nice little container that can hold whatever you want. Now, it would not be waterproof. It would not be moisture resistant. So like I said, if you wanted to put your medicine in there, for example, for a trip, you wouldn't want to do that long term, just because it would be exposed to the temperatures and humidities, because again, it is not sealed up. But it's a fun little print. I'll put the link to it below in the description. Again, it is something that I've designed, but I think it's pretty useful. Back to that Caribbean cask. This is something that we are actually working on ourselves in reverse. We have taken rum from the Virgin Islands, and we are currently aging it in used bourbon barrels, 53 gallons in a used bourbon barrel, and we have 53 gallons in a used toasted rye barrel. So we're kind of doing the reverse of this process, where we're keeping the sugar, we're keeping the sweetness of the rum, and we're trying to infuse the flavor from the whiskey barrels and what the whiskey had in it. So what we'll end up with is a spirit much less dark than this, because we're not actually doing a spiced rum. We're just doing a barrel-aged rum. So it's going to be much more champagne colored, maybe more similar to what a Scotch would look like in a used barrel. But it's been very promising so far, but it's nice to try the opposite end of that spectrum. Again, very tasty, definitely worth a try the next time you go into your local liquor store, ABC, whatever you might have. This next tool is something that I purchased off of a whim, and I have used it a tremendous amount of times since then. It is not very expensive, which makes it just even more useful. This is similar to what you might find in your hardware store, where you have threading on one side, on the male, and on the other side you have the female threading. And I find this very useful for lots of reasons. For 3D printing, it allows me to figure out exactly what size hole I would need for the measurement for the screw hole. But then when you're taking apart a desk and you lose a screw, you'll be able to pull this out. You have SAE and metric on this one. If you only deal with metric, you can buy the strand that's even longer and has a whole lot more fittings on it, and it's just metric or just SAE, depending on what you're dealing with. In the United States, we pretty much use both of them pretty fluidly because anything that we buy that comes from another country, which is most things, is going to have metric on it. But then anything that we build ourselves is going to have SAE on it. So we've kind of had to learn both systems pretty fluently. But this is fantastic whenever you are at home and you are trying to replace a knob on your kitchen, on your kitchen door. You can literally thread the screw in, or vice versa, thread the knob on, know exactly what you need to go to the hardware store and pick it up. They have these hanging up in hardware stores sometimes, but having one at home, especially if you're going to be like me and maybe order 100 of one type off of Amazon, having this is very handy. Again, I'll put a link to this. It's a one-time purchase, would probably last you forever. The one thing that somebody I know that has one of these actually didn't know they had it until after I purchased it, and then I saw that they had one. I would have never noticed it otherwise, is whenever they find a bolt that fits, they leave it in here. So if they thread something into this M10 and it fits, they leave it in there. And the reason that they said is because it's kind of hard to thread into, let's say, the backside of a cabinet with this. So just as he goes, he's been filling this, the female end up with the male side bolts. That way, again, he works on cars. He can reach right in and he can try, pull off the M10, put it in there and try threading it on. And if it fits, he knows it fits and he just stores it in here. So he just plops an extra one in there every once in a while. I'm sure there's probably, you could just buy a set of those, but, build it naturally as time goes on. Again, very useful. I'll put a link to it on Amazon. The last thing that I'm going to show you guys is a little bit different. It's definitely a useful thing. It's a style choice. It's definitely not going to be for everybody. I'm the kind of person that I prefer to wear a belt that uses buckles. I just find them to be much more durable. They're able to hold a pocket knife on the side, for example. This belt buckle was actually given to me for Christmas. And I just think it's very neat. It is literally a flask. You can push a button on the side and the flask slides up out of it. Or, if you unbuckle the flask, you'd be able to pour it into a glass. It only holds 3 ounces, so this is not something to go out and get crazy on a weekend for. It's really more of a style thing. It's fun. It's, you definitely wouldn't show up to court wearing something like this. You definitely wouldn't show up to your job wearing something like this, unless you have that kind of job. But it's fun. Fun to be able to show up somewhere and have 3 ounces of a select whiskey. If you've got something that really shines, you got a Baumburgers or something like that, you could throw it in this flask and have that. Something worth noting though, that flasks are considered open containers most places. So you actually can't take a flask in most places. So before you strap this on your stomach and go for that style choice, think that through, because if you get pulled over, you have an open container. If you are walking around a public park, you have an open container. Typically, whenever you have a mini bottle, well, not typically, every time you have a mini bottle, it would have that safety seal on it. It'd have that plastic over top of it that shows this has not been opened, and then you would be fine to walk around with it. But the way that most places look at something like this is that it is the same as carrying around a open glass of whiskey. So it's, like I said, it's more of a style thing. Maybe you throw some apple juice in here and just freak out your friends when you chug it at work. But I think it's very fun. It was given to me as a present for Christmas, and I wear it pretty often. I'm actually going to put it on today and wear it around. But again, I'll put a link to that on Amazon below. It does require a special kind of belt though. You can't just use any one. You have to have the kind that is set up for replaceable buckles, which again, I find to be the best. They just last forever, and they're much less expensive. because there's usually no need for some fancy brand name. You just want a strip of good rawhide leather, and there you go. So I'll put a link to that below, and I'll go ahead and put a link to the belts below as well. One thing that I do need to point out, YouTube makes us, is any links that you click below that are Amazon links, they are affiliate links. So yes, I do make a small percentage. You buy a belt buckle, I might make 25 cents or something like that. But we do have to mention that. Something to keep in mind, though, is I would definitely not recommend anything that I do not use myself, that I do not personally believe in. There's enough things out there that I like and that I do believe in that I would use, that I'll take the time to recommend those, and I'm not going to recommend anything that I wouldn't spend my own money on. Again, so if I lost this today, would I buy another one? Yes, I would. And that's an important distinction. So again, if you guys would click that like and subscribe button at the bottom so you can be notified every Sunday when this happens, and also check out some of the other channels we have going on, including 3D print spaces and things like that. We'll be working on an RV later on, where we will be installing upgrades to it in little bits and pieces, whether it's 3D printed or whether it's bought off the shelf, ready to install, something that's easy to do, that's going to really improve the experience. So we're going to take this channel lots of different directions. So if you'd like and subscribe, and again, Andy Brady, and have a good day.